Welcome, young artist. Welcome to your Batman painting class. My name is Miss M, and today we're gonna go do this painting together step by step. Be sure in front of you, you have your Batman canvas, excuse me. You have a larger and smaller brush, a napkin or a Kleenex, the skin tone color, white, black, and this light blue. Also, be sure you have a cup of water and a plate, just in case we need to mix. And we will be mixing today, our black and white and several other things. And then just be sure to follow along at any point. If you want to pause the video, please do. But let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead and grab your two brushes and turn them in your cup of water. Get both of your brushes nice and clean and gently dry them on your paper towel. Step one is our bigger brush and this kind of flesh tone. I do want you to get a scoop of this flesh tone, put it on your paper plate, a little bit of white, and just kind of mix yourself a little bit of a lighter flesh tone. You just want it to be a little bit lighter. And again, I'm just using my big brush to mix, and I'm gonna wipe off any chunks of paint that might be on there while I'm mixing. Go back for some more. I'm gonna pretty much go in here where the skin is exposed and paint it that flesh tone. To keep it nice and neat, I am gonna go underneath kind of this V shape with my big brush and to the right, kind of this curve, pretty much outline where I wanna keep the flesh tone. And I'll go in there and paint this whole area. I can always go back for more paint if I need to. I like to hold my brush where the gold or the silver close to the bristles is up front. If you catch some of that pencil, that's okay. Just kind of smooth it out, get it off of your paintbrush. I'm kind of doing my best to kind of go around it a little bit. If it touches it, it's okay. It might smear a little bit. That's why I'm kind of avoiding it. But again, if it does smear, just kind of sweep it out. Get it nice and clean. So you have all that flesh tone area. If you want, you can give it 2 coats, which means you paint it once, let it dry, and then give it a nice second coat so it's a little bit cleaner. But that is totally optional. So step 1 is big brush, flesh tone with a little bit of white, and painting inside this area, trying to avoid some of the pencil mark areas. I'm gonna wash and dry. Once I'm done, I wanna kind of avoid this area. I don't wanna put any paint near it because I don't want them to mix. I want to kind of work on that background area a little bit. So I'm going to wash and dry my big brush. This whole background area, so all that space behind Batman's going to be a darker gray. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 scoops of my white with my big brush and a little bit of black. Just a little bit goes a long way, so just like a dot of black. And mix myself a nice dark gray. If you need it to be darker, add more black. If you need it to be lighter, add more white. But it's a nice dark gray. I'm gonna make sure I mix it really well. Don't see too much white or black peeking through. So a nice dark gray, something like this. You can maybe even like kind of wipe off any extra, mix that in too. But don't have big chunks of paint on the sides, just wipe it off. And once you're done, you're gonna make a bubble around Batman, which means I'm gonna start kind of on the right shoulder and go just a little bit on the outside of the pencil line. It's okay if you get some on there. I drag my big brush so I know where I wanna stop with my gray paint. So I'm just kind of going around Batman, creating this nice gray bubble. Once I'm done, I can paint all that background space nice and gray. I like to paint in one direction, just kind of like this up and down direction, keeping it nice and clean. Ooh, some on Batman, it's okay. And again, if you want to do 2 coats, which means you paint the gray once, go back after a minute or 2 so you can paint another layer on top after it dries of gray. You can do that too. get into those spots you might have missed the first time. You won't be able to see the canvas as much in the background. You can go back to more gray. Make sure you have your fingers close to the front. Kind of hold it like a pencil. If you want, it's an artist's choice, you can paint your 4 sides gray, but what I do want you to do if you do decide to is kind of go over the shoulder area, so you make sure you paint Batman's cape the correct color. So I just kind of go over into the side, and I'm going to paint all this section gray. I always paint the sides just because I feel like it looks better if you hang it on the wall. Same on the left side. I'm just going to carry the shoulder over. I'm just using that same big brush and that same gray paint. Painting all that background gray. And then even the top part, you can be sure you're just going side to side. If you have any bumps, just going to go over it and smooth it out on the front part. On the side, you just want to make sure everything looks nice and smooth, nice long lines. What I would probably do is give it a minute to dry and then go back with a second coat of gray. Nice long movements with your brush from one end to the other where you stop. But since we're filming, I'm just going to go ahead and wash and dry my brush for the next step. So wash and dry is next. I'm going to use my big brush again for the next step. I'm gonna jump into my blue paint. So I want to make sure I have a nice clean big brush. First flesh tone, then my gray, and then step 3 will be the blue cape. And I'm gonna go around the eyes, kind of like the football shaped eyes in this blue. Using my big brush, nice long brush strokes. I'm gonna go in there and paint all the space, and it's okay if you kind of cover up the pencils a little bit, as long as you're still able to see it for later. And if you want, you can also paint the outsides with blue, but I'm just gonna let my gray dry for a little bit longer before I outline anything close to it. Going in there. Because I don't want my gray and my blue to touch just yet, because if they touch, they are going to mix together. So I'm just kind of avoiding that area for just a little bit longer. Acrylic paint usually takes a couple minutes to dry. You can tell that it's wet when it looks shiny. So once it's not so shiny, you can get a little bit closer. You can even go around the mouth area now that we've given that some time to dry. Stay outside of the eye area. I'm going to go over my outline just a little bit more. I go a little bit closer to my gray now that I feel like it's dry. If you accidentally mix the gray and the blue, just let it dry. You can build back on top of it again. The space underneath. I would definitely do 2 coats, maybe even 3 coats of this blue. It seems pretty thin. I can still see a lot of the canvas underneath. longer lines. Get that blue nice and clean. Drag that brush. Even underneath, remember when we wanted to kind of fold over the canvas to the sides and to the top? We're gonna finish the bottom off with some blue. Probably give it another minute or two to dry, and then I'll go over and give it a second coat. But again, we are videotaping right now, so I'm just kind of moving it along, but definitely give this second or third coat. Be sure that your bumps are covered with your brush to smooth them out. Get them nice and clean. Because if you see those little sweepy lines, you want to definitely pull them through to the end and kind of clean up that area. So far, so good. Perfect. Just more. So again, I would probably go back and give it a second or third coat. But I'm gonna go ahead and, oh, that's my coffee cup. I knew it. My water cup is over here. I'm gonna wash and dry my big brush. I knew I was gonna do that in one of the videos. I accidentally dipped my brush into my coffee cup. It's okay, I'm not gonna drink any more of it. While I'm waiting for the blue to dry, I don't wanna get too close to it with anything, but I am gonna go in here and kind of do the outline for the mouth with my small brush. Gonna get it a little bit wet, bring it to a nice twist. And if you're still painting the blue, pause this video and then you can go back to this next step. But small brush kind of brought it to a nice twist, made sure most of the water was out. A little bit of black. I'm gonna just go over those pencil lines from before. Barely push on your small brush, because if you're pushing really hard, it's gonna show. The more you push on your brush, the thicker the line becomes. So be sure you're just on the tippy toes. You're not folding this part over, you're just on the tippy toes. And then it looks like there is this part right here as well. Gorgeous. I mean, cool. Once you are done, you can go back to more black and just kind of outline this little area. Again, I would wait for my blue to dry. If it doesn't look shiny, then it's ready for you. If you wanted to go back and give it another coat, you could. You can kind of start outlining where the skin tone and the blue kind of meet as well. There we go. I'm just going to drag that brush so you don't see stop and go movements with your brush. Pretty much just kind of going in there in the mouth area. Add more black. I see this a lot too with black where it looks very scratchy. You can always add a little bit of water to your brush, tap it on the paper towel, and go in there for a little bit more black. But be sure you wipe off most of that water on your paper towel. That'll just kind of smooth your paint out a little bit better so it doesn't feel or look as scratchy. It's gonna go back over. And again, be sure you're just on your tippy toes. You're just creating a nice outline for that one. Go in there. Seems like my black is getting kind of scratchy looking. So I'm gonna get with a little bit of water. Then I'm going to go ahead and go around the eyes too. Make that pop out a little bit more. I did get some blue inside here. What I'm going to do later on, once the black dries, I can go in there and kind of touch it up with some white to white it out. For now, I'm just going to cover a little bit up with the black. And then go back in there after the black is nice and dry. and add some white to kind of clean it up. All right, and again, be sure not to have too much water on your brush. I'm gonna go outside Batman and start outlining him now that the gray might be a little bit more dry, even on the sides where it kind of curves over. I'm gonna come up here and drag that brush. My hand's getting a little bit wobbly. And it kind of depend a little bit more on my shoulder, or excuse me, not my shoulder, but my elbow. Set my elbow down on the table a bit more, so have a little bit more control. And I just kind of keep that brush going until it's out of paint. Again, I don't want it to be kind of stop and go movements. I want to drag that brush. Make sure it looks nice and smooth. Till it's out of paint. And then a little water, tap it like 5 or 6 times. Continue that line. So cool. It does look like I get some black a little bit further out than I wanted to, so I can go in. Just gonna add some gray on top. Kind of thin it out a little bit. A little bit of water to help it kind of blend in a little bit. We let it sit and then go back and kind of touch it up a little bit more, but just want to thin out that black line. So next, this is all absolutely optional. If you like your Batman the way it looks now, you got your basic lines, your flesh tone, you have your outline, you are good to go. But if you wanted to, you could go in there and kind of give it a little bit more dimension with a little bit more black and white, kind of making it look like things are coming a little bit more forward and things are going a little bit backwards. If you are wanting to do that, you are going to use your big brush and your black paint, and you can look until the very end and see if it's something you want to do. But if you want to add dimension, you can use your bigger brush, kind of tap it on your paper towel and kind of go in there and add some sweeps of black. Be sure your blue is nice and dry. You don't want it to be blending, but there's not too much black on my brush. I always just kind of pat it on my paper towel. I can even add some shadows kind of coming down and to the left. You can add some shadows, you can. If you wanted to add some coming from the side over here too. More, just gonna tap on the side. Even like around the nose area, if you wanted to kind of create some kind of shadowy. I just have a little bit of black on my brush. I'm just kind of going in there and adding some shadows. Again, completely optional if you wanted to add this dimension. It can be kind of harder. So for the younger kids, if they just wanted to kind of stick with the basics, their Batman looks great, you can do that. But if you wanted to add some shading and tinting where you add white, you can do that as well. Perfect. Go in there and add a little bit more. And then if you wanted to, you can even wipe off that same big brush, wipe it off on your paper towel or Kleenex, add a little bit of white, wipe it off, and then just kind of give your black a little bit of time to dry, and then go over it with just kind of a little bit sweeps of white too, just where you're kind of flicking your brush, add a little bit light here and there. If you catch too much black, just wipe it off on your paper towel, pat it on your Kleenex, and just kind of go in there and add some more. Add a little bit more dimension to your Batman. You could even go up here and get some light down here, some on his shoulders. Just kind of gives a little bit more dimension to your Batman. I might just go in there and kind of have this work together a little bit better. add some lines here and there. Give it a little bit more character. Very cool. Awesome. Well, there, ooh, if you want to, you can still go back and touch things up. Remember how I was talking about inside the eye area? So now that that black is a little bit more dry, I can go in there and just kind of white out inside the eye and clean it up. And I can also go back in there with a little bit more of a gray. Kind of fix out that outside. Don't feel like it has to be perfect the first time around, especially with this one. It's really easy to go back and touch it up. Now that I look at it, I'm like, oh, I want more white down here. And if your white and your black are mixing together and you want it to be a little bit brighter, just let that black dry a little bit more, so then the white sits on top of it just a little bit better. All right, there is your cool Batman. I hope you enjoyed your Young at Art painting class. Have a good one, you guys. Love, Young at Art.